Part 1. The golden sands of vast deserts stretch endlessly, where jagged mountain peaks dramatically pierce the clouds. Beyond these formidable landscapes lie the sweeping steppes, home to roaming horsemen, and further still, magnificent cities adorned with gleaming marble and bustling bazaars. This challenging yet endlessly fascinating terrain served as the perfect backdrop for one of humanity's grandest adventures in commerce and cultural exchange. This intricate network eventually connected the most distant corners of the ancient world. The very phrase, Silk Road, immediately conjures romantic images of camel caravans, laden with exotic treasures, slowly traversing desolate, sun-baked landscapes. However, this evocative name, first coined in 1877 by the German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen, greatly simplifies what was, in reality, an incredibly complex and intricate web of pathways. This vast tapestry of interconnected routes spanned thousands of miles across the sprawling Eurasian continent. Its tendrils stretched from Chang'an, now known as Xi'an in China, all the way to Constantinople, present-day Istanbul, and the vital Mediterranean ports of Antioch and Alexandria. For nearly 2 millennia, a staggering period from the 2nd century BC to the 16th century CE, these interwoven corridors functioned as the world's primary arteries for the exchange of goods, a vibrant conduit for ideas, a channel for the spread of religions, and a fertile ground for technological innovation. It was, in essence, humanity's very first grand experiment in globalization. This immense commercial network of the ancient world was never a single, unified highway. Instead, it comprised a complex, ever-shifting system of branching trails and diverse routes. Travelers and merchants rarely undertook the daunting task of traversing its entire length. Rather, goods would pass through countless hands, moving in a sophisticated relay system of trade that seamlessly connected east and west. This remarkable feat was achieved despite the complete absence of any overarching political authority or unified control across the vast expanse. This extraordinary accomplishment in human cooperation transcended rigid political boundaries, resiliently surviving the rise and dramatic fall of numerous empires. Ultimately, it profoundly transformed the societies it touched, leaving an indelible mark. The journey along these ancient passages presented truly formidable challenges to anyone brave enough to undertake it. Travelers frequently faced the scorching, relentless heat of the Taklamakan Desert, a name that some scholars suggest chillingly translates to, "Go in and you won't come out." The treacherous, ever-shifting sands of the Gobi Desert could easily swallow entire caravans, erasing all traces. The breathtaking yet perilous mountain ranges, the Pamir, the Hindu Kush, and the Tian Shan, presented their own unique dangers. These included narrow, winding passes often buried under meters of winter snow, the debilitating effects of oxygen-thin air at high altitudes, and impossibly steep tracks where even a single misstep could lead to certain death. Bandits constantly lurked in the remote, isolated regions, posing a constant threat to valuable caravans. During times of conflict, hostile armies might block passage through vital territories, adding another layer of peril. Survival along these arduous paths was utterly dependent on a constellation of oasis settlements. These vital havens dotted the unforgiving landscape like isolated islands in a vast, terrestrial sea. Places like Dunhuang, Turpan, Samarkand, Bokhara, and Merv became crucial lifelines where weary travelers could find respite, replenish their dwindling supplies, exchange currency, and, most importantly, trade their goods. Many of these settlements blossomed into flourishing urban centers, each developing its own unique culture. A rich blend of influences from the diverse peoples who constantly passed through their gates. These cities were far more than mere way stations, they were crucibles of civilization. Places where new ideas mingled as freely and dynamically as the merchants who carried them from one corner of the world to another. Climate played a paramount role, dictating the very rhythm of travel across the entire continent. Summer brought agonizing, scorching heat to the desert regions, rendering passage almost unbearable. Conversely, Winter transformed mountain passes into impassable barriers, choked by deep, unforgiving snows. Merchants meticulously planned their arduous journeys according to these predictable seasonal patterns, creating a pulsing, vibrant movement of goods and people throughout the entirety of Eurasia. Spring and autumn typically witnessed the heaviest traffic, with caravans eagerly taking advantage of the moderate, more forgiving temperatures before the brutal extremes of summer and winter made travel perilous or, in many cases, utterly impossible. The treasures that justified such dangerous and demanding journeys were both numerous and extraordinarily valuable, truly justifying the immense risks involved. Part 2. This ancient commercial web earned its lasting, modern name from its most celebrated and coveted luxury commodity, silk. This luminous, exquisite fabric, a state secret zealously guarded by the Chinese for centuries, eventually became so incredibly sought after in the Roman Empire that, at one astonishing point, it traded pound for its very weight in gold. However, the vibrant flow of goods extended far beyond this single, remarkable textile. From east to west journeyed highly prized porcelain, intricate jade, aromatic spices, fragrant tea, revolutionary paper, and eventually, the transformative invention of gunpowder. The westward arteries, in turn, returned valuable gold, gleaming silver, delicate glassware, fine wool, powerful horses, exotic ivory, fragrant perfumes, and shimmering precious stones to the east, completing a complex and lucrative exchange. Yet these material goods, though immensely valuable, tell only half of the story. Alongside these commodities traveled something far more significant and profoundly impactful: knowledge itself. Buddhism, for instance, journeyed from its Indian homeland to become a dominant and shaping faith in China and across East Asia. Groundbreaking mathematical concepts, precise astronomical observations, and advanced medical techniques passed seamlessly between diverse civilizations, enriching them all. Musical instruments and distinctive architectural styles gracefully crossed borders, blending and evolving in new environments. Crops and innovative agricultural methods spread, transforming distant economies and improving lives. These connections became powerful conduits for religions, philosophies, unique art forms, and cutting-edge technologies that would, over time, fundamentally reshape human societies across the globe. Few, if any, merchants traversed the entire, immense distance from China to the Mediterranean. Instead, goods might change hands dozens of times during their long journey, with local traders specializing in specific segments of the passage. This sophisticated relay system of commerce created a remarkable chain of human connection, spanning cultures that often had no direct contact with one another. A bolt of shimmering silk, leaving a workshop in China, might pass through 20 different intermediaries before finally adorning the wife of a Roman senator, its origins often shrouded in mystery to its ultimate owner. The profound economic impact of this extensive exchange transformed the lands it touched in countless ways. Cities that controlled strategic points along these crucial thoroughfares accumulated enormous wealth, which they then channeled into the construction of monumental architecture, the generous patronage of exquisite art, and the establishment of prestigious scholarly institutions. Merchant classes gained unprecedented influence, directly challenging traditional power structures that had been based solely on landed aristocracy or military might. New, innovative financial instruments rapidly developed to facilitate this long-distance trade. Early forms of letters of credit, various partnerships, and nascent forms of insurance emerged to effectively manage the inherent risks in such ambitious ventures. What makes this ancient commercial system particularly remarkable is that it functioned so effectively without any centralized planning or unified control. Unlike the meticulously constructed Roman roads or the Persian royal road, which were built by imperial decree to serve administrative and military needs, these trading corridors evolved organically, shaped by the collective, decentralized actions of countless merchants relentlessly seeking profit. The specific byways themselves shifted over time, constantly responding to changing political situations, fluctuating environmental conditions, and emerging economic opportunities. When one avenue became too dangerous or simply unprofitable, traders would pragmatically find and establish alternative routes. This adaptive commercial phenomenon witnessed and remarkably survived the dramatic rise and fall of history's greatest empires. The Han and Tang dynasties of China, the Parthian and Sasanian empires of Persia, the Kushans of Central Asia, and the mighty Roman and Byzantine empires all actively participated in and profoundly benefited from its operation. Even the cataclysmic Mongol conquests, which initially brought widespread devastation, ultimately revitalized these transcontinental connections. They did so by establishing unprecedented security across vast territories under what historians now refer to as the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongol Peace. The profound legacy of these ancient connections extends deeply into the modern world. The very cities, vibrant cultures, and advanced technologies that emerged from this extensive exchange continue to shape contemporary life in fundamental ways. Modern discussions surrounding globalization often echo debates that occurred along these thoroughfares 2 millennia ago, highlighting the enduring relevance of this historical period. This history is not merely a captivating tale of distant times. It is the very foundation upon which today's intricately interconnected world was meticulously built. The clock now turns back to the 2nd century BC. A pivotal moment when a Chinese emperor's strategic concerns about nomadic threats to his northern frontier set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately create history's most significant and far-reaching network of cross-cultural exchange. Part 3. The extraordinary tale of the Silk Road truly begins with the mighty Han dynasty and features an adventurous, intrepid diplomat named Zhang Qian. His remarkable journeys would, in time, profoundly open China's eyes to the vast and diverse world that lay far beyond its established borders. For millennia, the closely guarded secrets of silk production had been jealously kept by the Chinese before the very first delicate threads of this precious fabric found their way westward, nearly 5,000 years ago. By the 30th century BC, Chinese artisans had already mastered the incredibly complex and intricate art of sericulture. This involved the meticulous cultivation of silkworms and the careful harvesting of their delicate cocoons. The entire process was labor-intensive, demanding meticulous attention to every single detail. It required feeding the voracious caterpillars mulberry leaves, maintaining precise temperatures to ensure their health, carefully unwinding the near-invisible filaments from their cocoons, and then skillfully weaving them into luminous, shimmering textiles that caught and refracted the light. This extraordinary fabric was far more than a mere luxury commodity. It served as powerful political currency, a spiritual treasure, and a sophisticated artistic medium. Imperial courts reserved the finest specimens for themselves, with certain colors, like imperial yellow, being strictly forbidden to commoners under penalty of death. Silk also served as official gifts, strategically used to appease neighboring powers, as currency to pay troops, and as a medium for the earliest forms of Chinese writings. The penalty for revealing the closely guarded secrets of silk production was nothing less than death. This draconian measure is a clear indication of just how seriously the Chinese state regarded its absolute monopoly on this remarkable commodity. What the Chinese had long treasured primarily as a domestic resource would soon become the unexpected catalyst for unprecedented international exchange. The path to this dramatic transformation began not with enterprising merchants seeking new markets, but with a pressing military and diplomatic crisis facing the Han dynasty, which had come to power in 206 BC. After years of brutal internal warfare that followed the collapse of the Qin dynasty, the Han rulers found themselves confronting a formidable external threat along their northern frontier: nomadic confederations from the steppes. These mounted warriors, originating from the vast Mongolian grasslands, distant ancestors of the Huns, who would later menace Rome, continuously raided the settled agricultural communities of northern China. The ambitious Emperor Wu, ascending to the Han throne during the early 2nd century BC, was resolute. He resolved to break the power of these elusive horsemen, who seemed to materialize from the wilderness to strike with devastating impunity, and then vanish just as quickly. Combining relentless military campaigns with astute diplomatic initiatives, he sought to secure his realm's northern borders once and for all. The Han strategy extended far beyond direct confrontation. Emperor Wu wisely recognized that confronting these superb mounted archers on their home terrain was inherently perilous and often futile. Instead, he sought to encircle and isolate the northern nomads by forming strategic alliances with other peoples living beyond China's western frontiers. Intelligence reached the Han court about a tribal confederation called the Yuezhi. These people, once defeated by the steppe nomads and driven westward, might be motivated to join forces against their common enemy. The critical mission to locate these potential allies fell to an intrepid and courageous court official named Zhang Qian. In the late 100s BC, Emperor Wu dispatched him westward with a party of 100 men, tasked with finding the Yuezhi and negotiating a crucial alliance. What followed was one of history's most remarkable journeys of exploration. It was a trek that would ultimately last more than a decade, and in doing so, it profoundly opened China's eyes to the vast, unknown world beyond its carefully guarded borders. Part 4. Just weeks into their monumental journey, Zhang Qian and his entire party were unexpectedly captured by hostile Xiongnu patrols. For an astonishing 10 years, they remained in captivity among these northern nomads. Despite their confinement, Zhang Qian was treated relatively well. He even married a woman from these tribes and fathered children. However, he never once abandoned his critical mission. When a rare opportunity for escape finally arose, he immediately resumed his westward journey, accompanied by his nomadic wife and a handful of his original companions, displaying unwavering determination. Zhang Qian pressed onward through territories no Chinese had ever documented before, venturing into the truly unknown. He bravely crossed the formidable Pamir Mountains, pushing into what is now Tajikistan and Afghanistan. He finally located the Yuezhi in Bactria, located in northern Afghanistan, only to discover that they had settled into an urban, agricultural life and had little to no interest in a risky military venture against their old enemies, the Xiongnu. Though unsuccessful in his primary diplomatic objective of forging an alliance, Zhang Qian had gathered an unprecedented amount of invaluable information about the lands far beyond China's western border. After an absence of 13 long years, Zhang Qian finally returned to Chang'an during the 120s BC. Miraculously, only one of his original 100 men survived the arduous journey alongside him. The information he brought back completely transformed Chinese understanding of the wider world. He meticulously described thriving Central Asian kingdoms such as Fergana, Sogdiana, and Bactria, detailing their sophisticated cities, advanced agricultural practices, and active commerce. Most tantalizing to Emperor Wu were Zhang Qian's reports of the exceptional horses bred in the Fergana Valley. These magnificent animals were described as larger, stronger, and significantly faster than any in China, and were believed to sweat blood, a phenomenon likely caused by a parasitic condition that resulted in red secretions. These heavenly horses quickly became an obsession for Emperor Wu, who immediately saw in them the key to achieving military superiority against the persistent frontier threats. A few years later, as the 2nd century BC neared its final decade, Emperor Wu dispatched Zhang Qian on a second expedition westward, this time with greater diplomatic success. Official relations were successfully established with several Central Asian states, and a Han envoy even reached as far as Parthia, modern Iran. Most importantly, Zhang Qian secured crucial trade agreements that brought the coveted Fergana horses to China, directly fulfilling Emperor Wu's strategic desires. To support this new diplomatic and commercial outreach, Emperor Wu established a series of military colonies and garrisons across the Heshi Corridor, the narrow strip of land between the Tibetan Plateau and the Gobi Desert that formed the natural passage from China to Central Asia. These strategically placed outposts quickly evolved into important trading centers and vital safe havens for merchants, providing much-needed security. The military colonies introduced Chinese agricultural techniques to these new territories, and simultaneously created a crucial buffer zone against nomadic incursions. The defensive infrastructure expanded dramatically. Existing walls and fortifications were interconnected and extended, eventually becoming what would later be known as the Great Wall. Watchtowers dotted the landscape, allowing for rapid communication through fire signals, providing early warnings of threats. Garrison troops not only provided security but also served as a steady customer base for merchants, creating local markets at these frontier outposts, stimulating economic activity. Dunhuang emerged as the most significant of these frontier settlements. Located at the eastern edge of the formidable Taklamakan Desert, this oasis marked the pivotal point where travelers had to choose between the northern or southern paths to navigate around this deadly expanse of sand. The town rapidly grew from a mere military outpost into a thriving commercial hub where Chinese merchants readily met their Central Asian counterparts. With security firmly established along the Heshi corridor, Chinese goods, particularly the highly prized silk, began flowing westward in unprecedented quantities. In exchange, a wide array of exotic items entered China: powerful horses from Fergana, exquisite jade from Khotan, grapes and innovative wine-making technology from Central Asia, new varieties of fruits and vegetables, and even captivating musical instruments and skilled dancers that became highly fashionable at the Han court. Part 5. The profound impact of these exchanges extended far beyond mere material goods. Chinese artisans adopted intricate motifs from Western textiles and sophisticated metalwork, enriching their own artistic traditions. Buddhist missionaries from the powerful Kushan Empire would soon travel these newly established pathways, bringing their profound faith to China, setting the stage for one of history's most significant religious transmissions. Medical knowledge flowed seamlessly between cultures, enriching therapeutic traditions in both East and West, leading to advancements for all. Zhang Qian's arduous journeys, initially undertaken for purely military and diplomatic purposes, had inadvertently created the essential foundations for what would become the world's most significant pre-modern trade network. Within a single generation, isolated kingdoms and empires were transformed into active participants in a vast, interconnected commercial exchange system that would endure for nearly 2 millennia. A testament to its fundamental utility. An ancient Chinese proverb wisely states that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. In this pivotal case, the very first steps of Zhang Qian's diplomatic missions initiated a grand journey that would ultimately connect civilizations across thousands of miles and countless generations, forever altering the course of human history. What began as a strategic response to pressing border security concerns evolved into a dynamic transcontinental dialogue of cultures, religions, technologies, and ideas that would profoundly shape the development of human civilization for centuries to come. Between the flourishing Han Empire in the east and the expanding Roman Empire in the west stood a powerful and crucial intermediary, the Parthian Empire, rising from the ashes of the Seleucid realm in what is now modern Iran. The Parthians strategically positioned themselves along the emerging trade corridors that connected China with the Mediterranean world. Their vast domain encompassed modern Iran, Iraq, and significant parts of Turkey, Armenia, and Turkmenistan, territories that contained crucial sections of what would become the central arteries of this monumental transcontinental exchange. The Parthians quickly recognized the immense profit potential inherent in controlling these vital passages, understanding their strategic importance. Unlike later empires that sometimes sought to dominate the entire length of the commercial network, the Parthians wisely embraced their role as efficient and powerful middlemen. They actively improved the existing infrastructure they had inherited from their Persian and Seleucid predecessors, diligently maintaining and extending the ancient royal road that stretched from Susa, near the Persian Gulf, to Sardis in western Anatolia. Caravanserais, fortified inns providing essential shelter, food, and security for weary travelers, were meticulously constructed at regular intervals, typically a day's journey apart, ensuring safe passage and rest. Parthian authorities implemented sophisticated systems to regulate this burgeoning trade, including strategically placed customs posts and standardized taxation, ensuring a steady flow of revenue. Their stable silver coinage greatly facilitated transactions across their vast realm, promoting economic stability. Most importantly, they maintained a relative peace within their borders, allowing merchants to travel with a reasonable degree of security, reducing the risks inherent in long-distance trade. This, Pax Parthica, created the essential preconditions for flourishing commerce. Although ongoing Romano-Parthian conflicts periodically disrupted the western segments of the trade channels, the Parthian strategy of controlling east-west commerce proved remarkably successful and lucrative. Their merchants grew immensely wealthy by purchasing Chinese goods from intermediaries at their eastern frontiers and then selling them at substantial markups to eager Western buyers, effectively capitalizing on the demand. This commercial hegemony also had a significant political dimension. By controlling the flow of highly coveted luxury goods to Rome, the Parthians gained considerable economic leverage over their powerful Western rival. The vast transfer of gold and silver from Rome, needed to pay for these Eastern luxuries, caused recurring financial crises in the Roman economy, highlighting the Parthians' influence. While the Parthians undoubtedly dominated the central portion of this transcontinental exchange, numerous smaller kingdoms also played crucial roles, acting as essential interconnecting links in the extensive commercial chain. Part 6. The Kushan Empire. With its heartland in what is now northern India, Afghanistan, and parts of Central Asia, forged a critical and vital bridge between the Chinese, Indian, and Persian worlds. Emerging from the Yuezhi nomads who had eventually settled in Bactria, the Kushans established a truly multilingual, multicultural realm that became a vibrant crossroads of commerce and a dynamic exchange of ideas. Under powerful rulers like Kanishka in the early decades of the 2nd century CE, the Kushan Empire reached its absolute zenith, controlling vast territories that stretched from the Aral Sea all the way to the Ganges River valley. Their coins, though inscribed in Greek script, remarkably featured a diverse pantheon of Indian, Persian, and Central Asian deities, powerfully symbolizing their rich multicultural identity. The Kushans were fervent patrons of Buddhism, actively facilitating its widespread dissemination along the commercial corridors that led to China. Their realm became a veritable melting pot where Greeks, Indians, Persians, and Chinese peoples freely exchanged goods and ideas in bustling, cosmopolitan cities like Peshawar, Taxila, and Mathura, creating a vibrant cultural fusion. Further north, the Sogdian city-states clustered around Samarkand and Bokhara emerged as highly specialized and indispensable actors in the growing commercial drama of the Silk Road. The Sogdians, an Iranian people renowned for their exceptional talent for languages and keen aptitude for trade, established thriving merchant colonies throughout Central Asia and even deep into China. Their remarkable commercial acumen made the very term, Sogdian, synonymous with merchant in many regions, a testament to their reputation. Their linguistic versatility, with many Sogdians being fluently multilingual, made them ideal intermediaries for complex cross-cultural transactions. These enterprising traders gradually extended their operations eastward, eventually establishing permanent, well-integrated communities in the Chinese capital, Chang'an, and other major urban centers, solidifying their commercial presence. Sogdian merchant letters, astonishingly discovered in a watchtower near Dunhuang, provide invaluable insight into the sophisticated commercial operations of these traders. They detail intricate market information, elaborate credit arrangements, and shrewd trading strategies, all discussed between partners separated by thousands of miles. These invaluable documents provide rare, first-hand evidence of the complex and highly organized commercial networks operating across Eurasia, where trusted family members meticulously manage distant branches of vast trading enterprises, ensuring their success and longevity. In the western reaches of this monumental commercial system, the desert city of Palmyra played a similar and equally crucial connecting role. Situated at a critical oasis in the heart of the Syrian desert, Palmyra rapidly grew from a modest local trading post into a magnificent and wealthy city, whose prosperity derived almost entirely from long-distance commerce. Palmyrene merchants specialized in highly sought-after luxury goods destined for lucrative Roman markets: exquisite silk, aromatic spices, fragrant perfumes, and shimmering exotic stones. Their caravans, sometimes numbering in the hundreds of camels, bravely traversed the dangerous desert routes that stretched between Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean, braving immense risks for immense rewards. Bilingual inscriptions in Aramaic and Greek found in Palmyra honor prominent merchants and seasoned caravan leaders, powerfully demonstrating the high social status and respect accorded to successful traders in their society. The spectacular monuments of the city, its grand temples, impressive colonnaded streets, a vast agora, and elaborate tombs, all vividly testified to the enormous wealth generated by this flourishing commerce. For several centuries, Palmyrene merchant families operated extensive and far-reaching networks, extending from Rome all the way to India, perfectly exemplifying the entrepreneurial energy that drove transcontinental trade. These various intermediaries, Parthians, Kushans, Sogdians, and Palmyrenes, collectively created an interconnected commercial ecosystem that enabled goods from distant China to reach the vibrant Mediterranean markets. Despite the complete absence of direct contact between the Han and Roman empires, their specialized roles and cooperative spirit allowed the network to function seamlessly across formidable political, linguistic, and cultural boundaries. Part 7. The most famous and undoubtedly prized luxury commodity moving westward through this intricate system was, without question, Chinese silk. This luminous, exquisite fabric reached the Roman world toward the end of the 1st century BC, where it immediately created an astonishing sensation. Roman women, captivated by its sensual qualities and exotic origins, eagerly embraced the diaphanous material. The Roman Senate, however, alarmed by both the perceived moral implications of these revealing garments and the substantial drain of gold required to pay for them, made unsuccessful attempts to prohibit men from wearing silk during the reign of Tiberius, a testament to its allure. The renowned Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder, writing during the Flavian dynasty, famously lamented that, at the lowest computation, India, China, and the Arabian Peninsula take from our empire 100 million sesterces every year. That is what our luxuries and our women cost us. His complaint clearly reflected a widespread concern among Roman authorities about the persistent negative balance of trade with the East. Yet, despite official disapproval and economic worries, the Roman appetite for silk only intensified with time, becoming an insatiable demand. Roman understanding of silk's true origins remained remarkably inaccurate and often fantastical. Pliny, for instance, genuinely believed that silk came from trees, writing that the Chinese comb from the leaves both a woolly substance and a fine white liquid, then wash it with water and draw it out into threads. Other Roman writers imagined silk as a peculiar type of wool or cotton. These widespread misconceptions persisted primarily because the Romans had no direct contact whatsoever with China. All their silk arrived via multiple intermediaries, who carefully guarded information about their sources to protect their immense profits and maintain their commercial advantage. The Roman desire for direct access to the source of silk and other coveted Eastern luxuries motivated ambitious exploration and determined attempts to circumvent the Parthian middlemen. Maritime routes, traversing the Red Sea to India, rapidly developed as crucial alternatives to the slower, more perilous overland passages. The anonymous author of the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a detailed sailing guide written during Nero's reign, described extensive trade routes reaching from Egypt all the way to India, with tantalizing mentions of a distant land called Thyna, which was undoubtedly China, further east. Near the close of the 1st century CE, a Roman envoy named Gauning, dispatched by General Ban Chao of the Han dynasty, reached the shores of the Western Sea, likely referring to the Persian Gulf or the Eastern Mediterranean. According to precise Chinese historical records, Parthian guides deliberately discouraged him from continuing further, falsely telling him that the sea voyage to Rome would take a prohibitively long 2 years, and that many died on the journey. This calculated misinformation was a clear tactic to protect Parthian commercial interests by preventing direct Romano-Chinese contact, thus preserving their profitable role as intermediaries. Antioch in Syria and Alexandria in Egypt emerged as the principal western termini of this transcontinental exchange, serving as the crucial points where eastern goods entered the vast Mediterranean commercial circuits. Both cities rapidly developed specialized markets and workshops where raw materials from the east were meticulously processed into finished goods for eager Roman consumers. Particularly significant were the renowned purple dye workshops of Tyre, where Chinese silk was expertly re-dyed with the precious Tyrian purple, a pigment extracted from murex shellfish, creating fabrics literally worth their weight in gold. Financial infrastructure evolved rapidly to support the growing volume of this expansive trade. Banking houses and major commercial centers offered vital letters of credit to merchants, eliminating the dangerous need to transport large quantities of coin across perilous territory, significantly reducing risk. Part 8. Specialized commercial law rapidly developed to govern complex transactions between merchants originating from vastly different legal traditions. Jewish and Syrian trading communities meticulously established extensive diaspora networks spanning the entire Mediterranean, providing trusted agents in foreign ports, building a web of reliability. By the twilight of the 2nd century CE, the sheer volume of trade flowing between East and West had reached unprecedented levels, a true testament to the network's efficiency and demand. Chinese silk, aromatic Indian spices, fragrant Arabian incense, and exotic African ivory flowed westward in a constant stream, while Roman glassware, fine woolen textiles, and valuable gold and silver moved eastward, completing the lucrative exchange. This extensive exchange profoundly transformed consumption patterns and material culture in societies thousands of miles apart from one another. Eastern luxuries, once considered exotic and rare, became increasingly integrated into the everyday lives of wealthy Romans, symbolizing status and sophistication. Simultaneously, Western technologies and distinctive artistic styles influenced development in China and Central Asia, leading to new innovations and cultural blends. The commercial connections established during this period created the essential framework for even more significant exchanges yet to come. Profound religious ideas, groundbreaking scientific knowledge, innovative artistic concepts, and transformative technological innovations would soon follow the paths pioneered by luxury goods. Buddhism, for instance, would journey from India to China, forever changing the spiritual landscape, while vital Greek philosophical concepts moved eastward, enriching new intellectual traditions. Chinese innovations like the revolutionary invention of paper would eventually transform intellectual life in the West, dramatically increasing literacy and knowledge dissemination. The stage was thus meticulously set for a dialogue of civilizations, unprecedented in human history, all remarkably enabled by the humble silkworm and the shimmering fabric produced from its delicate cocoons. The caravans that bravely traversed the vast, challenging expanses between East and West carried more than just silk, spices, and precious stones. Hidden within the packs of merchants, nestled among the myriad trade goods, traveled something far more significant and enduring, ideas themselves. Of all the profound cultural transmissions that followed the commercial pathways across Eurasia, none proved more consequential and transformative than the eastward journey of Buddhism. This ancient faith moved from its Indian homeland to the diverse societies of Central and East Asia, fundamentally reshaping them. Buddhism entered China during the later Han Dynasty, not through conquest or official mission, but through the quiet, pervasive influence of foreign merchants. Indian and Central Asian traders, practicing their faith in private shrines and small temples within Chinese trading towns, gradually attracted the attention of local populations, who grew curious about their mysterious rituals and profound philosophical teachings. Unlike Confucianism and Taoism, which had developed organically within the Chinese cultural context, Buddhism offered an entirely new worldview. It presented distinct and compelling answers to fundamental questions about existence, the nature of suffering, and the path to salvation, appealing to a wide array of individuals. The earliest Buddhist texts reached Chinese hands during the 1st century of the Common Era. The challenge of translating these intricate scriptures proved enormous. It was not merely a matter of finding equivalent words, but of expressing complex concepts that had no direct parallel in existing Chinese thought. Early translators often resorted to borrowing Taoist terminology, inadvertently creating hybrid interpretations that significantly influenced how Buddhism developed and was understood on Chinese soil. This painstaking process of translation and adaptation continued for centuries, ultimately creating a unique synthesis of Indian religious ideas and distinct Chinese cultural forms. As Buddhism gradually gained followers among the Chinese population, indigenous monks developed a strong desire to visit the sacred sites of India and study authentic texts directly from Indian masters. In the early 5th century, a Chinese monk named Faxian embarked on a remarkable journey that would last an astonishing 15 years. Setting out from the Chinese imperial capital, he traversed the terrifying deserts of Central Asia, bravely crossed the snowy mountains of the Pamir and Hindu Kush, and eventually reached the revered Buddhist holy sites in northern India. Part 9. Faxian's meticulously written account, a record of Buddhist kingdoms, provided detailed and invaluable information about the diverse lands along the trade passages, and quickly became an indispensable guide for later pilgrims seeking enlightenment. Faxian's pioneering journey established a long and revered tradition of Chinese Buddhist pilgrimage that would flourish for centuries, deeply enriching Chinese culture. These dedicated religious travelers, braving extraordinary hardships and perils to reach India, became incredibly important agents of profound cultural transmission. They returned with invaluable manuscripts, sacred relics, and inspirational artistic models that fundamentally transformed Chinese Buddhism, giving it a unique visual and textual identity. Their detailed written accounts, combining precise geographical information with insightful religious observations, constitute some of our most valuable historical sources for understanding the diverse societies connected by these transcontinental passages, offering a window into a past world. The most remarkable of these intrepid pilgrims was undoubtedly Xuanzang, who bravely departed the Tang capital in 629 CE, directly against imperial orders, demonstrating his unwavering devotion. His 17-year odyssey through Central Asia and India, and his eventual return with hundreds of precious Sanskrit texts, became the stuff of legend, eventually inspiring the classical Chinese novel, Journey to the West, a timeless literary masterpiece. Xuanzang's extraordinarily detailed record of his travels provides an unparalleled window into 7th century Asian societies. From the vibrant Buddhist kingdoms of the Tarim Basin to the great educational centers of India, such as Nalanda University, offering a rich tapestry of life. The tremendous effort and unwavering dedication invested in these pilgrimages and translation projects powerfully reflect the profound impact Buddhism had on Chinese society by the Tang dynasty. The foreign faith had become thoroughly integrated into Chinese culture, producing distinctive schools of thought like Chan, Zen Buddhism, which masterfully blended Indian meditative practices with innate Chinese philosophical tendencies, creating a unique spiritual path. Buddhist monasteries grew into important economic and cultural institutions. They owned vast tracts of land, operated banks and pawn shops, and served as crucial centers of scholarship, exquisite art, and advanced medicine, fostering a rich intellectual and practical life. The most spectacular and enduring visual evidence of Buddhism's journey eastward remains preserved at Dunhuang, where the Mogao caves contain the world's greatest treasury of Buddhist art, a breathtaking collection. Beginning in 366 CE, when a monk named Lazun claimed to have seen a vision of 1,000 Buddhas on the cliff face, Generations of devotees meticulously carved hundreds of cave temples into the soft rock, creating an awe-inspiring sanctuary. Inside these sacred caves, they created magnificent sculptures and vibrant wall paintings that vividly document the evolution of Buddhist art as it absorbed and synthesized influences from cultures all along the trade passages, showcasing a truly global artistic fusion. These caves served not only as profound religious shrines but also as invaluable repositories for texts. In 1900, a hidden library cave was miraculously discovered, containing over 50,000 manuscripts in numerous languages: Chinese, Tibetan, Sanskrit, Sogdian, Uyghur, and others, dating from the 5th to the early 11th centuries. This extraordinary time capsule revealed the rich multicultural character of Dunhuang, a vibrant place where religions, languages, and artistic traditions mingled freely at this crucial junction between East and West. Buddhism was certainly not the only faith to travel the transcontinental exchange pathways. Nestorianism, a form of Christianity declared heretical in the Byzantine Empire, found refuge and flourished in Sasanian Persia and subsequently spread eastward along the trading corridors, establishing new communities. In 635 CE, a Nestorian missionary named Alepen arrived in the Chinese imperial capital and received express permission from Emperor Taizong to establish a Christian presence in China. The famous Nestorian stele, erected in 781 CE, commemorates this significant event and meticulously documents the early history of Christianity in China in both Chinese and Syriac languages, providing invaluable historical records. Part 10. Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion centered on the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster, also spread along these important trade pathways. While it never gained the widespread following of Buddhism, it successfully established significant and thriving communities in Central Asian trading cities. Archaeological excavations have compellingly revealed Zoroastrian fire temples in Samarkand, Bokhara, and other vital commercial centers, demonstrating their presence. Persian merchants actively brought their faith with them to China, where it maintained a presence primarily within established foreign trading communities, serving as a cultural anchor. Manichaeism, a syncretic religion founded by the Persian prophet Mani in the 3rd century CE, displayed remarkable success in adapting to diverse cultural environments as it spread both east and west from its Mesopotamian origins. Combining elements of Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and Christianity, it appealed strongly to merchants and elites in many societies along the trade passages, though eventually suppressed in both the Christian and Islamic worlds. It found temporary acceptance among the Uyghurs of Central Asia, who even adopted it as their state religion for a period in the 8th and 9th centuries, showcasing its adaptability. Judaism also established a presence in China through the tireless activities of Persian Jewish merchants. The ancient Jewish community of Kaifeng, which remarkably maintained its distinctive identity until the 19th century, likely originated during the Tang dynasty when Jewish traders settled permanently in China. Archaeological evidence and historical records also thoroughly document Jewish communities in Central Asian cities like Samarkand and Bokhara, where they actively participated in transcontinental commerce, contributing significantly to the economic landscape. The final great religious movement to spread along these pathways was Islam. Following the dramatic Arab conquests of the 7th century, Muslim merchants became increasingly prominent and influential in the trade networks connecting the Mediterranean world with Central and East Asia. Their extensive commercial activities laid the crucial groundwork for the later widespread conversion of Central Asian societies to Islam, a transformative process that would dramatically reshape the cultural landscape of the regions between China and the Middle East, leading to profound and lasting changes. While religions constituted the most visible and widely recognized aspect of cultural exchange, countless other elements of human knowledge and creativity also traveled these same vital passages. Medical knowledge moved in multiple directions, with Indian and Persian physicians contributing significantly to Chinese pharmacology, expanding the understanding of medicinal properties. Simultaneously, Chinese diagnostic techniques influenced Western medical traditions, demonstrating a mutual enrichment. The Indian numerical system, including the revolutionary concept of zero, traveled west to become what we now call Arabic numerals, fundamentally revolutionizing mathematical calculation throughout Eurasia and laying the groundwork for modern mathematics. Astronomical observations and theories were shared among the advanced scientific traditions of China, India, Persia, and ultimately Europe, leading to a broader, more integrated understanding of the cosmos. Chinese innovations in metallurgy, particularly in the production of high-quality steel, spread westward, influencing metalworking techniques across continents. Agricultural techniques and diverse crop species moved in both directions, with Central Asian fruits like grapes and peaches reaching China, while citrus fruits traveled from China to the Mediterranean world, forever altering diets and agricultural practices. Each of these exchanges profoundly transformed daily life in societies thousands of miles apart, creating a more interconnected global culinary and agricultural landscape. The arts flourished through these cross-cultural contacts, creating new forms and styles. Musical instruments traveled along the commercial corridors, giving rise to new hybrid forms and performance traditions. The pear-shaped lute, for instance, moved from Persia to China, gradually evolving into the distinctive Chinese pipa. The Indian sitar likely developed from Middle Eastern predecessors, showcasing a continuous evolution of musical forms. The 7-day week, originally Babylonian but standardized by the Romans, eventually replaced the 10-day Chinese week through consistent commercial contacts, illustrating the subtle yet pervasive influence of trade on daily life. Visual arts displayed particularly clear evidence of cross-cultural influence, leading to fascinating fusions. Part 11. Greco-Buddhist art from Gandhara, in modern Pakistan and Afghanistan, powerfully combined Indian Buddhist themes with Hellenistic sculptural techniques, creating a distinctive and highly influential style that profoundly impacted Buddhist imagery throughout Asia. From Afghanistan to Japan, Persian textile patterns frequently appeared on exquisite Chinese silks, while Chinese motifs later influenced Islamic decorative arts, demonstrating a continuous artistic dialogue across vast distances. Artistic techniques traveled alongside motifs, for example, the advanced techniques of glass making spread from the Mediterranean to China, while the revolutionary art of paper manufacturing eventually moved westward from China, forever altering the dissemination of knowledge. The culinary traditions of Eurasia were profoundly transformed through the extensive exchange of ingredients, sophisticated cooking techniques, and new flavor preferences. Wheat cultivation and bread making spread eastward from the Fertile Crescent, becoming staples in new regions, while rice eventually traveled westward from East Asia. Diversifying diets. Spices became one of the most valuable commodities in long-distance trade, dramatically changing flavor profiles and cuisines thousands of miles from their origins, making global ingredients a part of local dishes. Sugar, originally domesticated in New Guinea and later cultivated in India, gradually spread westward to become a staple in Middle Eastern and Mediterranean confectionery, influencing sweets across continents. These varied cultural exchanges resulted directly from the movement of individuals who settled in foreign lands, creating vibrant diaspora communities that served as ongoing, living bridges between civilizations. Sogdian merchants established permanent settlements in China, bringing their distinctive culture, language, and religion with them, enriching Chinese society. Persian artisans worked in Tang dynasty workshops, influencing Chinese metalwork and textile production with their unique skills. Greek sculptors found employment in the Buddhist kingdoms of Central Asia, contributing to the artistic vibrancy of the region. Indian Buddhist monks established monasteries in China and Central Asia, spreading their faith and knowledge. What made these extensive exchanges possible was not merely the physical movement of goods and people, but the crucial emergence of cosmopolitan attitudes in the major cities connected by the trade passages. In metropolises like the Chinese imperial capital, Chang'an, and Samarkand, and Baghdad, Diversity became a source of immense prestige and cultural vitality. Foreign religions were often tolerated, foreign artisans valued for their unique skills, and foreign knowledge actively sought out by eager scholars and rulers, fostering an environment of intellectual curiosity. This cosmopolitanism, though never extending to all segments of society and often interrupted by periods of xenophobia, created the necessary conditions for the most extensive pre-modern exchange of ideas in human history. A true golden age of intellectual sharing. Through these dynamic movements of religions, technologies, artistic styles, and knowledge systems, the very foundations of a shared Eurasian cultural heritage were meticulously established. While each civilization steadfastly maintained its distinctive character, all were profoundly transformed and enriched by their active participation in this vast exchange network. The enduring legacy of these cultural transmissions continues to shape our modern world in countless ways. From the global spread of the world's major religions to the fundamental mathematical systems we use daily, their impact is undeniable. Behind these enduring influences lay the countless journeys of brave merchants, dedicated pilgrims, and skilled craftspeople who, in pursuing their individual goals, collectively created one of history's greatest achievements in human communication across formidable cultural boundaries. Dawn broke over the majestic Tang dynasty capital, illuminating a metropolis unlike any other on Earth. With a staggering population exceeding 1 million souls, this imperial city stood proudly as the world's largest and most cosmopolitan urban center. A truly fitting eastern terminus for the greatest commercial network of its age. The broad, straight avenues of this meticulously planned city teemed with an astonishing diversity of humanity. Central Asian merchants in colorful robes, erudite Persian astronomers, serene Indian Buddhist monks, diligent Korean scholars, astute Japanese diplomats, formidable Turkic mercenaries, and enterprising Arab traders. All were drawn to the magnetic power of Tang China's unparalleled cultural and economic might, creating a truly global city. Part 12. The rise of the Tang dynasty in 618 CE marked the auspicious beginning of what historians widely consider the golden age of the transcontinental trade passages. Under Emperor Taizong, who reigned until 649 CE, China entered a period of unprecedented prosperity, significant territorial expansion, and a vibrant cultural flowering. Unlike some of his predecessors who had viewed foreign influences with suspicion, Taizong actively embraced international exchange, demonstrating a remarkably open mind. He welcomed foreign envoys, generously patronized exotic arts, employed non-Chinese advisors in his court, and proactively promoted policies that greatly facilitated trade with distant lands. This cosmopolitan attitude reflected more than mere curiosity. It represented astute strategic statecraft. By diligently cultivating diplomatic and commercial ties with the diverse peoples of Central Asia, the Tang emperors shrewdly sought to secure their western frontiers and gain significant leverage against potential threats like the Eastern Turks and Tibetans. Trade policy and foreign relations were inextricably linked in Tang's strategic thinking, with commercial passages doubling as vital diplomatic channels and essential intelligence networks. Within the Tang capital, the western and eastern markets served as the bustling commercial heart of the city, a vibrant hub of economic activity. These vast, walled complexes contained specialized sections for different types of merchandise, ranging from local produce to the most exotic luxuries from distant lands. The Western market, in particular, became the undisputed center for international commerce, where Central Asian and Middle Eastern merchants established permanent, thriving trading communities. Here, one could purchase fragrant Arabian perfumes, exquisite Persian silverware, delicate Syrian glassware, fine Indian cotton and aromatic spices, and countless other foreign treasures, creating a truly global marketplace. These foreign merchant communities received official recognition and protection directly from the Tang government. Sogdians, Persians, Arabs, Indians, and others were permitted to maintain their distinct cultural identities, religious practices, and legal customs while residing in designated foreign quarters, fostering a unique multicultural urban environment. They built temples to their various deities, established schools that taught their native languages, operated specialized restaurants serving their traditional cuisines, and even maintained their own courts for settling disputes according to their customary laws, showcasing a remarkable degree of autonomy. The Tang legal code included specific provisions meticulously governing the residence and activities of foreign merchants, reflecting their significant and valued presence in Chinese urban life. These regulations were generally pragmatic rather than unduly restrictive, specifically designed to smoothly incorporate foreign traders into the imperial administrative system rather than marginalize them. Successful merchants could even receive prestigious Chinese government ranks and titles, which significantly facilitated their operations within the empire while simultaneously binding them more closely to Tang authority, creating a system of integration. The international character of Tang urban centers extended far beyond mere commerce to encompass religion, entertainment, and fashion, showcasing a truly globalized urban experience. Buddhist monasteries housed monks from throughout Asia, creating centers of spiritual learning and cultural exchange. Zoroastrian temples, Nestorian churches, and even a mosque in the imperial city served their respective communities, highlighting religious diversity. The entertainment districts featured Central Asian musicians, graceful dancers, and daring acrobats whose exotic performances captivated Chinese audiences with their foreign flair. Court ladies painted their faces white and meticulously drew small flower designs on their foreheads in imitation of foreign fashions, while aristocratic young men eagerly played polo, a thrilling sport imported directly from Persia. Part 13. This magnificent cultural efflorescence, a period of unparalleled artistic and intellectual vibrancy, received a severe and unexpected shock during the middle of the 8th century. The Enriching rebellion, which erupted in 755 CE, devastated the empire and permanently altered the trajectory of Tang history, marking a turning point. General Enriching, ironically himself of mixed Sogdian and Turkish descent, led a massive uprising that successfully captured both the imperial capital, Chang'an, and Luoyang, forcing the emperor to flee in disarray. Although eventually suppressed after 8 years of brutal civil war, the rebellion claimed millions of lives, destroyed vast amounts of wealth, and deeply traumatized Chinese society, leaving lasting scars. The Tang dynasty ultimately survived, but the cosmopolitan exuberance of its early period slowly gave way to more conservative and insular tendencies. A xenophobic reaction led to significant restrictions on foreigners and foreign influences, a noticeable shift in policy. The most dramatic expression of this cultural backlash came in 845 CE, when Emperor Wuzong ordered the widespread suppression of foreign religions, primarily targeting Buddhism but also significantly affecting Nestorian Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and Manichaeism. Thousands of temples and monasteries were systematically destroyed, and foreign clergy were forcibly returned to secular life, marking a period of religious persecution. Despite these immense challenges, the transcontinental commercial networks proved remarkably resilient. Though diminished in volume and altered in character, trade continued through the late Tang period, demonstrating its underlying strength. The primary difference lay in who controlled the trade. As Chinese government supervision of the western regions weakened, various non-Chinese peoples, Tibetans, Uyghurs, and others, asserted control over key segments of the Central Asian passages, strategically extracting tolls and redirecting trade flows to their advantage, becoming new power brokers. Meanwhile, on the western end of the commercial network, a new power was rising that would profoundly transform the character of Eurasian exchange. The Arab conquests of the 7th century, inspired by the new faith of Islam, created a vast empire stretching from Spain to the very borders of China. The Umayyad Caliphate, 661 to 750 CE, and its successor, the Abbasid Caliphate, 750-1258 CE, unified formerly fragmented territories under a single political authority, establishing unprecedented security for travelers and merchants across much of the network's western and central sections. The Abbasid Caliphate, with its magnificent new capital of Baghdad, emerged as the powerful western counterweight to Tang China, a new center of influence and wealth. Founded in 762 CE by Caliph al-Mansur, Baghdad was deliberately situated at the confluence of crucial trade routes connecting Arabia, Persia, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean, making it a strategic hub. The circular city, with the Caliph's palace at its very center, rapidly grew into a metropolis of hundreds of thousands of inhabitants, drawing merchants and scholars from throughout the known world. Under the greatest Abbasid ruler, Harun al-Rashid, 786 to 809 CE, Baghdad reached its absolute zenith as a vibrant center of commerce, cutting-edge science, and profound culture, becoming the envy of the world. The Caliph dispatched embassies to distant lands, including a famous one to Charlemagne in France and another to the Tang court in China. These diplomatic missions shrewdly doubled as commercial ventures, establishing new trade connections and meticulously gathering intelligence about distant markets, combining diplomacy with economics. Harun's court became legendary for its immense wealth and unparalleled sophistication, later immortalized in the captivating tales of the Arabian Nights, showcasing its enduring cultural impact. The Abbasid economy operated on a scale that dwarfed its European contemporaries, demonstrating remarkable sophistication. Part 14. Its sophisticated financial instruments greatly facilitated long-distance trade. Letters of credit, SAC, the origin of the English word, check. Various partnerships, mudaraba, that ingeniously spread risk among investors. And advanced double-entry bookkeeping systems that meticulously tracked complex transactions were all pioneered during this period. Muslim merchants innovated new commercial techniques that would later be widely adopted in Europe, including various forms of credit, modern banking, and early insurance. Revolutionizing business practices. Arabic became the lingua franca of commerce across a vast territory, significantly simplifying communication for merchants traveling between distant markets. A merchant from Córdoba in Spain could converse with colleagues in Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, or Samarkand using the same language, despite the thousands of miles separating these vibrant cities. This linguistic unity facilitated not only trade but also the rapid and efficient transmission of ideas, technologies, and scientific knowledge throughout the Islamic world and beyond, creating a truly interconnected intellectual sphere. Islamic religious values shaped commercial practices in distinctive and profound ways. The Quran's explicit approval of legitimate trade, the Prophet Muhammad himself had been a merchant, gave commercial activity a religious sanction often lacking in other traditions, elevating its status. Islamic law, Sharia, developed detailed regulations meticulously governing commerce, contracts, and partnerships, providing a robust legal framework. The prohibition on interest, riba, stimulated the development of innovative alternative financing methods that wisely distributed risk and reward between capital providers and entrepreneurs, fostering ethical business practices. While Baghdad represented the political center of the Abbasid realm, other cities emerged as specialized and crucial nodes in the commercial network, each with its unique function. Basra served as the primary port connecting Mesopotamia with the vital Indian Ocean trade, a gateway to the east. Damascus remained a significant manufacturing center, renowned for its exquisite textiles and intricate metalwork. Cairo strategically linked the Mediterranean with the Red Sea routes to India, forming a crucial nexus. Siraf, on the Persian Gulf, expertly handled trade with East Africa and India. Ray and Nishapur in Iran became key entrepôts for goods moving between the Middle East and Central Asia, facilitating smooth transitions. In Central Asia, cities that had already flourished under earlier empires reached new heights of prosperity, as indispensable intermediaries between the Chinese and Islamic worlds. Samarkand, beautifully situated in the fertile Zarafshan Valley, became particularly renowned for its advanced paper manufacturing industry. A transformative technology transferred from China that would eventually revolutionize the Islamic world and later Europe, ushering in an age of widespread literacy. The city's skilled artisans also produced exquisite glass, fine textiles, intricate metal goods, and beautiful ceramics that were traded throughout Eurasia, demonstrating their diverse craftsmanship. Bokhara, with its iconic skyline of minarets and domes, developed into a major intellectual center as well as a thriving commercial hub. Its vast libraries and prestigious madrasas, educational institutions, attracted scholars from across the Islamic world, fostering a vibrant intellectual community. The city became particularly known for hadith scholarship, the meticulous collection and verification of the sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, under scholars like Imam al-Bukhari, whose compilation remains among the most authoritative in Islamic tradition, revered by millions. Merv, located in what is now Turkmenistan, may have been the world's most populous city for a brief period during the 12th century, a testament to its immense historical significance. Its sophisticated urban infrastructure included elaborate water management systems, luxurious public baths, extensive libraries, and bustling markets specializing in different commodities, catering to diverse needs. Part 15. The city's strategic location at the intersection of routes connecting Iran, Central Asia, and China made it an essential commercial center, ensuring its continued prosperity. While its agricultural hinterland produced valuable cotton, silk, and other crucial crops, the material goods that flowed through this interconnected system were more diverse and abundant than ever before, reflecting a truly globalized market. Chinese silk remained important, but was now joined by highly prized Chinese porcelain, whose gleaming white surfaces and delicate blue designs captivated consumers throughout Eurasia, becoming a symbol of refinement. Tea from southern China became increasingly popular in Central Asia and parts of the Middle East, revolutionizing beverage consumption. Paper, initially a Chinese monopoly, was now produced in Samarkand and other Central Asian cities, gradually making its way westward and fundamentally transforming the dissemination of knowledge. From the Islamic world came exquisite glassware, intricate brass and bronze work, luxurious carpets, and fine textiles, particularly the treacherous. Luxury fabrics bearing beautiful calligraphic inscriptions that often included the name of the ruling caliph, signifying imperial authority. India contributed high-quality cotton textiles, exotic spices, glittering gemstones, and valuable ivory. The Byzantines exported fine glassware, intricate jewelry, and rich purple-dyed textiles, highly sought after in the West. From the northern forests came valuable amber, luxurious furs, and unfortunately slaves. African gold, ivory, and exotic animals entered the network through Egypt, adding to the immense diversity of traded goods. This dazzling array of goods passed through countless hands, steadily increasing in value with each transaction, creating a web of economic activity. Alongside these physical commodities flowed the invaluable currency of knowledge, perhaps the most precious exchange. The Abbasid Caliphate famously patronized the meticulous translation of Greek, Persian, Indian, and eventually Chinese texts into Arabic, launching an unprecedented intellectual movement. The House of Wisdom, Bayt al-Hikmah, in Baghdad employed scholars who diligently rendered works on medicine, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and other fields into the Arabic language. This monumental effort preserved ancient learning that might otherwise have been lost, and brilliantly integrated knowledge from diverse civilizations into new, groundbreaking syntheses, pushing the boundaries of human understanding. This intellectual ferment produced remarkable innovations. Muslim astronomers refined the astrolabe and constructed sophisticated observatories, advancing the study of the cosmos. Mathematicians like Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gives us the word algorithm, developed algebra as a distinct field, fundamentally changing mathematics. Physicians like Al-Razi and Ibn Sina, Avicenna, wrote comprehensive medical encyclopedias that would be studied in Europe for centuries, becoming cornerstones of medical education. geographers produced increasingly accurate maps of the known world, meticulously incorporating information gathered from merchants who had traveled to distant lands, expanding geographical knowledge. Chinese technological innovations continued to move westward, demonstrating the continuous flow of ingenuity. The advanced technique of making paper spread from Samarkand to Baghdad by the late 8th century, and from there throughout the Islamic world, fundamentally transforming the economics of book production and the widespread dissemination of knowledge, leading to a cultural revolution. Techniques for manufacturing high-fired ceramics slowly diffused westward, influencing pottery production. The magnetic compass, initially developed in China, eventually reached the Islamic world in Europe, revolutionizing navigation. The integration of diverse cultural elements resulted in distinctive aesthetic fusions in arts and architecture, creating new hybrid styles. Part 16. Central Asian textiles incorporated striking Chinese motifs alongside Persian and Hellenic elements, creating a rich tapestry of design. Chinese painting was influenced by Western perspective techniques, diffused via Central Asia, adding new dimensions to their art. Islamic decorative arts absorbed influences from Byzantine, Persian, and Indian traditions, resulting in complex and beautiful patterns. Music and cuisine similarly reflected the blending of diverse cultural elements as they traveled along the commercial passages, leading to new forms and flavors. By the mid-9th century, the Abbasid Caliphate began experiencing the same cyclical decline that had affected the Tang dynasty: territorial fragmentation, fiscal crisis, and military challenges from external powers and internal revolts, signaling a shift in power. The Golden Age of the Silk Road, as characterized by these two great empires, was drawing to a close as both its eastern and western anchors weakened simultaneously. Yet, the commercial and cultural networks established during this period would prove remarkably durable, surviving political upheavals to form the foundation for the next great phase of Eurasian interaction under the Mongols, demonstrating their inherent strength. The legacy of this golden age endures in countless aspects of modern life, from the very paper we write on to the numerical system we use for calculation. From the transmission of agricultural crops that transformed diets across continents to the enduring religious traditions that shaped contemporary societies, its impact is undeniable. The cosmopolitan spirit of the Tang capital and Baghdad, cities where diversity was valued and knowledge from all sources was eagerly sought, represents one of history's most inspiring episodes of cross-cultural engagement, a testament to the human capacity for peaceful exchange and mutual enrichment. The thundering hooves of Mongol cavalry echoed across the steppes, deserts, and mountains of Eurasia, heralding a new and transformative chapter in the history of the great transcontinental commercial network. What began as the unification of quarreling nomadic tribes under a charismatic leader named Temujin would soon transform into the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever known. A sprawling domain unlike any before it. From the shores of the Pacific Ocean to the vast plains of Eastern Europe, the Mongol conquests would initially bring unprecedented devastation, obliterating existing structures. However, this destruction was remarkably followed by a period of security, stability, and renewed prosperity for the ancient trade passages, ushering in a unique era of connectivity. The story begins in the harsh grasslands of Mongolia, where Temujin, born around 1162, embarked on a lifelong quest to unite the fractious nomadic clans. He achieved this through a potent combination of military genius, astute political savvy, and ruthless determination, proving his formidable leadership. He systematically overcame rivals and unified the Mongol tribes, forging them into a cohesive force. In 1206, a great assembly of Mongol leaders formally acclaimed him as Genghis Khan, the universal ruler, marking the official birth of the Mongol Empire. What followed was one of history's most extraordinary military campaigns, characterized by innovative tactics, psychological warfare, and remarkable administrative brilliance, demonstrating a mastery of both warfare and governance. The initial Mongol conquests, however, brutally devastated the established trade network. Cities that had flourished as commercial centers for centuries, Samarkand, Bokhara, Merv, and countless others, were systematically destroyed when they resisted Mongol demands for submission, suffering immense losses. Contemporary accounts graphically describe the utter obliteration of once magnificent urban centers. The Persian chronicler Juvayni wrote of the conquest of Merv. They drove all the people, women and men, out onto the plain. They divided them in accordance with their usual custom into hundreds and thousands to be put to the sword. No one escaped. Yet, destruction was clearly not the ultimate Mongol objective. Genghis Khan and his successors shrewdly understood that ruling settled populations required vastly different approaches than merely leading nomadic warriors. They adapted their governance strategies accordingly, particularly after the initial, brutal conquest phase, demonstrating a pragmatic shift. Part 17. While cities that resisted were utterly razed, those that submitted peacefully often received favorable treatment, a pragmatic carrot to accompany the stick. The Mongols shrewdly recruited administrators, skilled artisans, and learned intellectuals from conquered peoples to serve their growing empire, creating a remarkably diverse and effective imperial elite. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, his vast empire was divided among his sons and grandsons, eventually forming four major khanates: the Golden Horde in Russia and Eastern Europe, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Ilkhanate in Persia and the Middle East, and the Yuan dynasty in China, each a powerful entity. While these divisions certainly created distinct political entities, they consistently maintained strong familial, cultural, and commercial ties, fostering a sense of shared heritage. For nearly a century, the Mongol elite shared a common identity that transcended the administrative boundaries of the separate khanates, creating an unusual form of unity. This unprecedented political unification of virtually the entire length of the ancient trade passages created what historians now call the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongol Peace, a remarkable period when merchants could travel from the Black Sea to the Yellow Sea under a single, overarching political authority, a dream of free flow. The Mongols, keenly recognizing the immense economic benefits of commerce, actively promoted trade throughout their vast domains. As nomads with limited manufacturing capabilities of their own, they largely depended on trade to acquire the goods of settled civilizations, giving them a vested interest in the network's smooth and efficient functioning. The Mongols invested heavily in trade infrastructure. They meticulously constructed and maintained caravanserais at regular intervals across Central Asia, providing secure lodging for merchants and their valuable goods. They cleared roads, built essential bridges, and established reliable ferries at river crossings, facilitating uninterrupted travel. They introduced standardized weights and measures throughout their vast territories, greatly simplifying commercial transactions across diverse cultural boundaries. Most importantly, they established an unprecedented level of security on the roads, severely punishing banditry and theft within their domains, making travel safer than ever before. The most innovative and impactful contribution of the Mongols to Eurasian exchange was the remarkable development of the YAM system, a sophisticated network of postal stations and relay messengers that stretched across the entire empire, ensuring rapid communication. At its height, this system included approximately 1,500 postal stations, meticulously spaced about 30 miles apart, roughly a day's journey on horseback. Each station maintained a ready supply of fresh horses, nourishing food, and comfortable accommodation for official messengers and authorized travelers, ensuring constant movement. A messenger could cover an astonishing 250 miles per day by swiftly changing horses at these stations, a speed unmatched until the advent of railroad travel centuries later, demonstrating its remarkable efficiency. While primarily designed for government communications, the YAM system significantly benefited merchants as well. Travelers could move safely and rapidly through Mongol territory, and vital information about market conditions, political developments, and potential threats could spread with unprecedented speed. giving traders a competitive edge. The system facilitated both the physical movement of goods and the rapid transmission of commercial intelligence, creating a more integrated Eurasian market than had ever existed before, fostering truly international commerce. To further encourage and facilitate commerce, the Mongols instituted the pesa, also called jaraj, a distinctive tablet made of gold, silver, or wood that served as a passport and safe conduct for travelers. Part 18. Bearing the seal of the Khan and often inscribed in multiple languages, these tablets granted the bearer access to the yam system and protection throughout Mongol territory. Contemporary accounts describe how merchants carrying the pesa received escorts, provisions, and assistance from local Mongol authorities, making their journeys much smoother and safer. The most valuable pesa, crafted from gold and often adorned with pearls, conveyed almost diplomatic status on their bearers, reflecting their importance and prestige. The Mongol rulers also developed sophisticated financial instruments to further facilitate trade and economic activity. During the Yuan dynasty in China, Kublai Khan famously introduced paper money, meticulously backed by silk and precious metals, creating a stable and widely accepted currency for a vast territory, a revolutionary concept for its time. The Ilkhanate experimented with similar monetary innovations, demonstrating a shared vision for economic progress. Bills of exchange allowed merchants to deposit money in one city and withdraw an equivalent amount in another, eliminating the risky need to transport large quantities of precious metals across dangerous territory, significantly reducing vulnerability to theft. These financial innovations dramatically reduced the costs and inherent risks of long-distance trade, promoting greater commercial activity. The Mongol elite displayed remarkable religious tolerance by medieval standards, which further facilitated extensive cross-cultural exchange. Though eventually converting to Islam, Buddhism, or other faiths of their subjects, the early Mongol rulers adhered to their traditional shamanistic beliefs while showing keen interest in all religions. Genghis Khan famously exempted religious leaders, Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, and others, from taxation, encouraging religious freedom. Religious communities could practice freely as long as they prayed for the Khan's well-being and did not interfere with Mongol rule, fostering a diverse spiritual landscape. This environment of relative religious openness had profound implications for cultural exchange. Christian, Muslim, and Buddhist communities flourished throughout the empire, often in close proximity to one another, demonstrating a unique coexistence. Religious buildings of different faiths stood side by side in Mongol capitals, a visual representation of tolerance. Religious scholars of various traditions engaged in lively debates at the Mongol court, often sponsored by the Khans, who were curious about theological questions, fostering intellectual discourse. This environment of relative tolerance actively enabled the movement of religious ideas alongside commercial goods, allowing spiritual traditions to spread and interact freely. No account of the Mongol era would be complete without mentioning the remarkable journey of Marco Polo. Setting out from Venice in 1271, the young merchant accompanied his father and uncle on a trading mission that would keep him in Mongol-ruled China for nearly 2 decades, a truly epic journey. Serving in the court of Kublai Khan, Marco traveled extensively throughout the Yuan Empire, meticulously observing its cities, customs, and commercial practices. His captivating account, dictated after his return to Europe in 1295, introduced many Europeans to the wonders of the East, inspiring future explorers and traders to venture forth. Although some scholars question aspects of Marco Polo's narrative, his detailed descriptions of paper money, the widespread burning of coal, the efficient imperial postal system, and other Chinese innovations unknown in Europe lend significant credibility to his account, showcasing his keen observation. His text vividly reflects the perspective of a merchant, focusing primarily on trade goods, commercial practices, and urban amenities rather than solely on political or military affairs, providing a unique economic lens. This strong commercial emphasis makes his book particularly valuable for understanding the economic dimensions of the transcontinental exchange during this era of unified rule. offering invaluable insights into the daily realities of trade. Part 19. Marco Polo was exceptional in the sheer length of his stay in China. But he was far from the only European to travel the eastern trade routes during this remarkable period. Franciscan missionaries like John of Plano Carpini and William of Rubruck journeyed to the Mongol court in the mid-13th century, leaving behind detailed written accounts that enriched European knowledge of Asia. Merchants from Italian city-states established trading outposts in Black Sea ports, Crimea, and Central Asia, extending their commercial reach. Genoese and Venetian trade networks extended deep into Mongol territory, effectively connecting European markets with a vast array of Asian goods. A particularly remarkable traveler of this era was Rabban Salma, a Turkic Nestorian Christian monk who traveled from Beijing to Europe as an ambassador of the Ilkhanate. His journey, a reverse mirror of Marco Polo's, took him to Constantinople, Naples, Rome, Paris, and Bordeaux between 1287 and 1288, demonstrating an incredible reach. He even celebrated Mass with Pope Nicholas IV and met with prominent European monarchs like Philip IV of France and Edward I of England, underscoring the high regard in which he was held. His journey powerfully symbolizes the unprecedented connectivity of Eurasia under Mongol rule, illustrating a truly globalized world. Ibn Battuta, the great Moroccan traveler of the 14th century, also greatly benefited from the relative security of the Mongol realms during his extraordinary journeys across Asia, Africa, and Europe, allowing him to traverse vast distances. His travels took him through the territories of the Golden Horde and the Chagatai Khanate, and he meticulously left detailed descriptions of the commercial cities along his route, providing invaluable historical records. His observations of paper money, efficient postal stations, and bustling commercial practices corroborate many aspects of Marco Polo's earlier account, strengthening the historical narrative. The sheer volume and immense diversity of goods exchanged during this era of transcontinental security exceeded all previous periods, marking a true zenith of trade. Chinese silk and porcelain continued to flow westward in ever-increasing quantities. The distinctive blue and white porcelain, which would later become synonymous with Chinese ceramic art, remarkably developed during the Yuan dynasty in response to Middle Eastern tastes, incorporating cobalt pigments imported from Persia. This fascinating fusion of Chinese manufacturing techniques with West Asian aesthetic preferences perfectly exemplifies the cross-cultural character of Mongol-era commerce, showcasing a beautiful blend. Technologies transferred more efficiently than ever before. Printing technology, long established in China, spread westward through Mongol territories, reaching Persia and eventually Europe, revolutionizing communication. Gunpowder and its associated weapons diffused rapidly from China to the Islamic world and Europe during this period, forever changing warfare. Agricultural innovations also traveled along the trade routes, leading to widespread improvements. New fruit varieties, advanced irrigation techniques, and innovative cultivation methods transformed food production across Eurasia, leading to increased yields and diverse diets. The Mongol era witnessed unprecedented scholarly and scientific exchange. Persian and Arab astronomers actively worked in Chinese observatories, contributing their expertise, while Chinese mathematical and calendrical knowledge significantly influenced Middle Eastern science, demonstrating a two-way intellectual flow. Medical knowledge from Chinese, Indian, Persian, and Greek traditions circulated throughout the empire, synthesized in multilingual medical compendia, leading to a broader and more comprehensive understanding of healing. The famous Persian physician Rashid al-Din, serving the Ilkhanate, compiled comparative studies of Chinese and Islamic medicine, highlighting a desire for integrated knowledge. Part 20. Artistic motifs and techniques flowed freely across cultural boundaries, fostering a vibrant exchange of creative ideas. Chinese motifs like the lotus, peony, and dragon appeared in Persian miniatures and textiles, demonstrating their widespread appeal. Persian decorative styles influenced Chinese painting and ceramics, adding new dimensions to their artistic traditions. The distinctive blue and white porcelain that became synonymous with Ming Dynasty art actually developed during the Yuan period. Utilizing cobalt pigment imported from Persia, highlighting a cross-cultural origin. This cultural fusion created new aesthetic traditions that would long outlast the Mongol era itself, leaving an enduring artistic legacy. Architecture similarly reflected this cross-cultural exchange. The famous Mongol capital at Karakoram contained Buddhist temples, Muslim mosques, and Christian churches, often constructed by skilled artisans brought from distant conquered territories, showcasing a blend of styles. In China, Islamic architectural elements appeared in traditional Chinese buildings, subtle but noticeable. In Persia and Central Asia, East Asian influences could be seen in decorative elements and construction techniques, creating unique architectural hybrids that symbolize the unprecedented cultural mixing of the period. Demonstrating a true fusion of styles. The Mongol era witnessed not only the dynamic movement of goods and ideas but also large-scale population transfers. The Mongols systematically relocated skilled artisans and intellectuals from conquered territories to serve imperial needs, demonstrating a strategic utilization of talent. Persian astronomers worked in Chinese observatories, contributing their specialized knowledge. Central Asian Muslim administrators served in the Yuan government, bringing their administrative expertise. Chinese siege engineers assisted in Mongol campaigns in the Middle East, sharing their technological prowess. These forced migrations created vibrant diaspora communities that became incredibly important agents of cultural transmission, spreading knowledge and skills. For all its achievements, this era of transcontinental exchange unfortunately contained the seeds of its own dissolution. The separate khanates gradually lost their initial sense of common identity, increasingly adopting the religions and cultures of their subjects, leading to greater regionalism. The Ilkhans converted to Islam, the Yuan embraced aspects of Chinese governance, and the Golden Horde adopted Turkic language and Islamic faith, demonstrating a clear cultural assimilation. Religious differences created growing tensions between the formerly united branches of the Mongol family, leading to internal conflicts. By the mid-14th century, the Khanates operated as largely independent powers, sometimes even in direct conflict with one another, marking the end of unified rule. Internal succession disputes plagued each Khanate, further weakening central authority and creating opportunities for subject peoples to assert greater autonomy, leading to political fragmentation. Economic policies that initially stimulated trade, such as the extensive use of paper money without sufficient backing, eventually led to rampant inflation and significant financial instability, particularly in the Yuan dynasty, undermining economic stability. The enormous costs of maintaining the vast imperial infrastructure, from the efficient yam system to the extensive military garrisons, severely strained resources and necessitated heavy taxation, burdening the populace. The final, devastating blow to this unified commercial system came not from political or economic challenges, but from a catastrophic biological event, the Black Death. This devastating pandemic, which tragically killed approximately one-third of Europe's population, likely originated in East Asia and spread rapidly along the very trade routes that the Mongols had so meticulously secured and developed, demonstrating the double-edged sword of connectivity. Part 21. Merchant ships and caravans unknowingly transported not only valuable goods but also infected rats and fleas carrying the deadly bacteria, serving as unwitting vectors of disease. Contemporary accounts from affected regions describe apocalyptic scenes as the pandemic swept through densely populated cities, leaving widespread death and despair. The Florentine writer Boccaccio famously wrote that, "Fathers abandon their children, wives their husbands, brother his brother," illustrating the breakdown of social bonds. While Islamic chroniclers described entire villages and urban districts left completely without inhabitants, the economic impact proved equally severe, disrupting production, trade, and agriculture throughout Eurasia. The disease spread with unprecedented speed due precisely to the very interconnectedness that had made the Mongol commercial system so successful. turning an advantage into a vulnerability. A merchant infected in Kaffa on the Black Sea could carry the disease to Constantinople before even showing symptoms, demonstrating the rapid transmission. Caravans could transport infected rats across Central Asia all the way to China, spreading the plague far and wide. Naval vessels could bring the plague from Black Sea ports to Mediterranean cities, ensuring its global reach. The highly integrated Eurasian commercial networks had, ironically, created an ideal environment for pandemic transmission. The demographic collapse resulting from the Black Death dramatically reduced demand for luxury goods, fundamentally undermining the economic foundation of the transcontinental trade. Labor shortages following the pandemic led to increased wages for workers, but devastating losses for merchant elites, shifting economic power. Agricultural production declined as farmland lay fallow for lack of laborers, impacting food supply. Tax revenues plummeted, further weakening the already strained Mongol administrations, leading to political instability. By the late 14th century, the Mongol Empire had fragmented beyond recognition, marking its definitive end. In China, the Yuan dynasty fell to the Ming in 1368, ushering in a new native dynasty. In Persia, the Ilkhanate had already collapsed into competing regional powers, leading to decentralization. The Golden Horde fractured into smaller khanates that would eventually succumb to the rising power of Moscow, marking a shift in the balance of power. Only in Central Asia did Mongol rule persist longer, with Timur, Tamerlane, claiming Genghis Khan's legacy while building his own formidable empire centered on Samarkand, briefly rekindling the dream of a vast Eurasian realm. The commercial networks established during this era of unified rule proved more durable than the political structures that had facilitated them. Trade continued along the ancient passages, though at reduced volume and with significantly greater risks and costs, reflecting the changed circumstances. The specialized merchant communities, Venetians, Genoese, Armenians, Jews, Arabs, Persians, and others, maintained their operations, pragmatically adapting to the changed political landscape. The knowledge, technologies, and cultural elements exchanged during the Mongol era had become permanently integrated into the societies they had reached, leaving a lasting imprint. The legacy of the Mongol period for the transcontinental exchange network was paradoxical. On one hand, the Mongol conquests initially devastated many of the urban centers that had been crucial nodes in the commercial system, causing immense disruption. On the other hand, the subsequent era of stability created conditions for more extensive and voluminous trade than ever before, acting as both destroyer and creator. The Mongols were both destroyers and creators, tearing down existing structures only to build new and often more efficient ones, demonstrating a complex historical role. Perhaps the most significant long-term consequence of the Mongol era was the unprecedented level of information exchange between distant civilizations. Europeans gained more accurate knowledge of Asia than they had ever possessed before, expanding their worldview. Chinese learned about European and Middle Eastern technologies and scientific concepts, enriching their own understanding. The circulation of practical knowledge, from Persian astronomical instruments to Chinese printing techniques, and from Arab algebra to Eurasian shipbuilding methods, accelerated technological development throughout the connected world, fostering innovation. Part 22. Marco Polo's account, despite its limitations and occasional exaggerations, perfectly exemplifies this information exchange. His detailed descriptions of paper money, coal burning, efficient tax collection, and reliable postal services introduced Europeans to Chinese innovations they had never imagined, sparking their curiosity. While immediate practical applications of this newfound knowledge were limited, the broadening of European intellectual horizons would later contribute significantly to the experimental attitude of the Renaissance and the subsequent age of exploration, setting the stage for global change. The Mongol era thus represented both the zenith of the ancient Eurasian exchange system and the undeniable beginning of its transformation. The very success of the transcontinental peace in facilitating extensive east-west contact would ultimately contribute to developments that would render the traditional overland routes less essential. European mariners, inspired partly by Marco Polo's captivating descriptions of Asian wealth, would soon seek direct sea routes to the east, aiming to circumvent the complex chain of middlemen that had characterized the old commercial network, seeking greater profits and control. As the 14th century drew to a close, the ancient passages linking east and west remained active, but increasingly challenged by political fragmentation, economic disruption, and the emerging maritime alternatives, signaling a shift in global trade. The Mongol dream of universal empire had faded, its vast realm fractured. But the commercial and cultural connections forged during their remarkable century of dominance had permanently altered the trajectory of world history, leaving an indelible legacy that continues to shape our modern global civilization. The solemn ringing of church bells across Europe announced each new outbreak of the pestilence, a mournful counterpoint to the muezzin's call that echoed over similarly devastated cities from Cairo to Samarkand. The Black Death, which first appeared in Crimea around 1347, swept across the interconnected Eurasian world with devastating efficiency, following the very commercial arteries that had facilitated centuries of prosperous exchange, turning trade routes into paths of death. By the time its initial fury subsided in the early 1350s, the pandemic had claimed perhaps a third of Europe's population and comparable numbers across the Middle East, Central Asia, and China, leading to unprecedented demographic collapse. This biological catastrophe delivered a severe blow to the transcontinental network that had reached its zenith under Mongol protection, marking a turning point in its history. Beyond the immediate human tragedy lay profound economic consequences: collapsed demand for luxury goods, widespread labor shortages, abandoned agricultural lands, and sharply declining tax revenues, crippling economies. The plague bacterium, unwittingly transported by merchants and their goods, clearly demonstrated the double-edged nature of Eurasian connectivity. The same pathways that had carried silk, spices, and ideas now became vectors for microscopic death, revealing the vulnerability of interconnectedness. The timing of this pandemic proved particularly consequential, coinciding precisely with the widespread political fragmentation of the Mongol Empire. The Golden Horde, ruling the western steppe regions, had already adopted Islam and grown culturally distant from its Mongol origins, leading to greater autonomy. The Ilkhanate in Persia collapsed entirely following the death of Abu Sa'idi in 1335, fragmenting into competing regional dynasties, further destabilizing the region. The Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia split into eastern and western sections, with diverging political trajectories, diminishing its power. In China, Mongol rule grew increasingly unstable as natural disasters, economic mismanagement, and native Chinese resistance undermined Yuan dynasty authority, leading to its eventual downfall. Into this fractured landscape stepped a conqueror whose name would become synonymous with both destruction and splendor: Timur, known to Europeans as Tamerlane. Born in the 1320s near Samarkand, this Turco-Mongol warlord claimed descent from Genghis Khan and embarked on a campaign of conquest that would briefly resurrect the dream of a unified Eurasian empire, though through brutal means. Part 23. Between 1370 and his death in 1405, Timur conquered vast territories stretching from Delhi to Damascus, and from the Aral Sea to Anatolia, creating a short-lived but immense empire. Unlike Genghis Khan, whose conquests ultimately facilitated commerce, Timur's campaigns caused lasting and severe damage to the commercial infrastructure of Central and Western Asia. His armies systematically destroyed the intricate irrigation systems of Mesopotamia that had sustained agriculture since Sumerian times, crippling vital infrastructure. They demolished the commercial centers of the Middle East and India, massacring urban populations and forcibly deporting skilled artisans to Samarkand, enriching his capital at the expense of others. His conquest of Delhi in 1398 resulted in the horrifying slaughter of perhaps 100,000 people in a single day, a testament to his brutality. Damascus, Baghdad, and Aleppo suffered similarly devastating fates, their once thriving commercial centers reduced to ruins. While Timur certainly made his capital at Samarkand into a magnificent showcase of Islamic architecture and generously patronized the arts and sciences, the broader economic impact of his conquests was overwhelmingly negative for transcontinental commerce. The crucial security and stability necessary for long-distance trade vanished, replaced by widespread fear and uncertainty. Merchants faced heightened risks and pervasive uncertainties. Commercial cities that had taken centuries to develop were depopulated or destroyed entirely, erasing invaluable centers of trade. The carefully developed networks of credit, partnership, and trust that had facilitated trade across cultural boundaries collapsed amid the chaos of repeated invasions, severing vital connections. Timur's empire disintegrated rapidly after his death, as his sons and grandsons fiercely fought for control of various territories, leading to further fragmentation. The resulting political fragmentation created additional barriers to trade, with multiple authorities demanding tolls, taxes, and customs duties along formerly unified routes. Merchants now had to negotiate passage through numerous competing jurisdictions, each seeking to extract maximum profits from the diminished flow of commerce, adding complexity and cost. While Central Asia suffered greatly from these political convulsions, equally significant changes were unfolding at the eastern terminus of the ancient network. The Ming dynasty, established in 1368 after the overthrow of Mongol rule, initially maintained an outward-looking commercial policy, showing promise for renewed trade. Early Ming emperors dispatched the remarkable treasure fleets commanded by Admiral Jinghe, whose 7 voyages between 1405 and 1433 reached as far as East Africa, demonstrating China's capacity for maritime dominance. However, this brief but impressive period of Chinese maritime expansion soon gave way to more restrictive and isolationist policies. After 1433, court factions opposed to naval expeditions gained the upper hand, arguing that such ventures drained the imperial treasury while providing insufficient benefits, leading to a dramatic policy reversal. The treasure fleets were disbanded, shipyards fell into disrepair, and maritime technology stagnated, crippling China's naval power. While private Chinese merchants continued overseas trade, they did so without state support and in the face of increasing restrictions, making their ventures more challenging. The Ming government gradually implemented a more controlled approach to foreign commerce, known as the tributary trade system. Foreign merchants could trade only at designated ports, at specified times, and only after acknowledging Chinese imperial supremacy through ritual kowtowing and tribute offerings, reinforcing China's centrality. This system provided the Ming court with political prestige while allowing it to meticulously regulate the flow of goods and people across its borders. For practical purposes, it made trade with China significantly more complicated, more expensive, and ultimately less attractive to foreign merchants, discouraging wide-scale interaction. Part 24. This inward turn reflected deeper shifts in Chinese strategic priorities. The primary security concern for Ming rulers was not controlling distant trade routes, but rather defending against persistent Mongol threats from the north. They invested enormous resources in renovating and extending the Great Wall, focusing inward, rather than maintaining the overland commercial corridors that had connected China to Central Asia. The Heshi Corridor and other Western approaches received less attention and protection than during earlier dynasties, leading to their decline in significance. At the western end of the ancient network, another imperial power was rising with momentous consequences for Eurasian exchange: the Ottoman Turks. Emerging from Anatolia, they conquered Constantinople in 1453, extinguishing the thousand-year Byzantine Empire and gaining crucial control over access between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, a vital strategic choke point. By the early 16th century, Ottoman territories encompassed most of the Middle East, North Africa, and southeastern Europe, territories that had been essential links in the transcontinental commercial chain, ensuring their influence over trade. The Ottoman conquest initially disrupted established trading patterns, particularly for Italian merchants who had developed special relationships with Byzantine authorities, causing temporary chaos. However, the Ottomans soon recognized the immense value of facilitating and taxing commerce through their territories. Under Mehmed II and his successors, Constantinople was revitalized as a commercial center, with new markets, caravanserais, and port facilities, restoring its economic vibrancy. The Ottomans generally protected foreign merchants operating within their domains, though they extracted substantial revenues through customs duties and required permits, ensuring their own profit. Yet, even as the Ottomans consolidated control over traditional trade centers, their expansion also created strategic challenges for European commercial interests. Venetian and Genoese merchants, whose prosperity had long depended on their role as gateways for Asian goods entering Europe, found their privileged positions threatened by Ottoman policies favoring Muslim traders, leading to competitive pressure. The flow of Asian goods to Europe remained substantial, but European merchants faced higher costs and greater uncertainties when operating in Ottoman territories, prompting them to seek alternatives. These changing conditions at both ends of the ancient commercial network, Ming isolationism in the East and Ottoman control in the West, might have led merely to adjustments and adaptations within the traditional system. However, a more fundamental challenge was emerging that would ultimately render the ancient overland passages secondary to newer, more efficient maritime connections, European oceanic exploration. A truly transformative development. The Portuguese led this maritime revolution, driven by a powerful combination of commercial ambition, religious zeal, and technological innovation, setting the stage for a new era. Under Prince Henry the Navigator in the early 15th century, Portuguese captains began methodically exploring the African coastline, constantly improving ship designs and navigation techniques with each voyage, accumulating invaluable knowledge. Their ultimate goal was to circumvent Muslim-controlled trade routes and establish direct contact with the sources of Asian wealth, seizing control of the lucrative spice trade. This quest reached its first major milestone in 1488, when Bartholomew Diaz successfully rounded the Cape of Good Hope at Africa's southern tip, opening a new route. A decade later, Vasco da Gama completed the monumental journey to India, reaching Calicut in May 1498 and returning to Portugal with a cargo of spices that yielded a staggering 6,000% profit, demonstrating the immense profitability of the sea route. This successful voyage definitively demonstrated the commercial viability of the long sea route to Asia, effectively bypassing the complex chain of middlemen that had characterized the traditional overland network, ushering in a new age of direct maritime trade. The Portuguese quickly leveraged this breakthrough, establishing a chain of fortified trading posts from East Africa to the Spice Islands, modern Indonesia, Macau, and Japan, building a formidable maritime empire. Part 25. Their strategy emphasized naval power rather than extensive territorial control, cleverly using superior ships and advanced gunpowder weapons to dominate key maritime choke points and extract favorable trading terms from local rulers, establishing their dominance. The Estado de India, as this maritime empire was known, fundamentally altered the economics of Eurasian trade. When direct comparison became possible, the cost advantages of maritime shipping over land transport proved decisive and overwhelming. A Venetian merchant bringing pepper from Alexandria to Venice in the traditional manner paid approximately 70% of the pepper's value in transportation and transaction costs, a massive expense. The Portuguese, shipping directly from Cochin in India to Lisbon, incurred costs of only about 30%. A significant reduction in overhead. This substantial differential meant that even with the longer journey time by sea, European merchants could deliver Asian goods more cheaply via the Cape route than through the Middle East, making the sea route economically superior. The Spanish soon joined the maritime competition, sponsoring Christopher Columbus's ambitious attempt to reach Asia by sailing westward across the Atlantic. Though Columbus encountered the Americas instead, The Spanish quickly established their own global maritime empire, connecting vast new territories. The circumnavigation of the globe by Ferdinand Magellan's expedition in 1519 to 1522 symbolized the new reality of oceanic connectivity. Although the excessive costs and casualties of this pioneering voyage demonstrated its practical limitations and immense difficulty. By the mid-16th century, a significant portion of the luxury goods that had once traversed the ancient pathways connecting China and the Mediterranean now moved predominantly by sea. Portuguese carracks and galleons carried Chinese silk and porcelain, Indian cotton and spices, and Southeast Asian aromatics directly to European ports, bypassing the old routes. The overland routes continued to function but handled a diminishing share of east-west commerce as merchants and consumers adjusted to the new economic realities, leading to their gradual decline. This maritime revolution had profound implications for the societies that had specialized in facilitating overland trade. Cities like Venice and Genoa, whose prosperity had depended on their role as gateways for Asian goods entering Europe, faced relative decline as trade shifted to Atlantic ports like Lisbon, Seville, and later Amsterdam and London, experiencing a loss of their former prominence. The commercial cities of the Middle East and Central Asia suffered even more dramatic reversals as they found themselves increasingly marginalized in the emerging global economy, losing their central role. The gradual eclipse of the ancient overland network should not be seen as a sudden collapse, but rather as a centuries-long process of adaptation and realignment. A slow and complex transformation. Even as maritime connections gained prominence, certain high-value, low-volume luxury goods continued to move along traditional channels, maintaining some level of overland trade. Regional commerce within Central Asia remained vibrant, with cities like Bokhara and Samarkand serving local and regional markets even as their role in intercontinental trade diminished, demonstrating resilience. Overland routes linking China with Russia and the Ottoman Empire maintained significance for specific commodities and diplomatic exchanges, retaining some strategic importance. Moreover, the cultural and intellectual connections established during the heyday of the traditional network proved remarkably durable. Religious communities, scholarly traditions, artistic styles, and technological knowledge that had spread along the commercial arteries remained embedded in the societies they had reached, an enduring legacy. The legacy of centuries of cross-cultural exchange continued to shape developments in philosophy, science, art, and literature long after the economic foundations of the network had eroded, demonstrating the lasting power of ideas. By the dawn of the 17th century, the ancient pattern of Eurasian exchange had been fundamentally transformed. The age of European maritime empires had begun, initiating the process that would eventually create a truly global exchange network, incorporating the Americas and Oceania alongside the connected lands of Afro-Eurasia. The ancient passages that had carried silk from China to Rome, Buddhism from India to East Asia, and countless other material and cultural treasures between distant civilizations, now function primarily as regional trade routes. Their transcontinental significance diminished, but never entirely forgotten. The declining practical importance of the overland network coincided with the mythologization of the Silk Road in the European imagination, turning it into a romantic legend. As direct contact with China increased, Europeans developed more accurate knowledge of silk production, geography, and Chinese society, but simultaneously romanticized the ancient trade routes as pathways of mystery and adventure. Marco Polo's account, first printed in 1477, found new readers fascinated by his descriptions of exotic lands and peoples, fueling a desire for exploration. The ancient commercial network, even as it faded as an economic reality, began its afterlife as a powerful cultural symbol of connectivity and exchange between East and West, a timeless representation of global interaction.